This is intended as an initial basic introduction to Blender and how the screens are laid out. It is intended for someone who has never really worked in 3D or is totally new to Blender. Blender is a 3D program and is laid out on a 3D axis. The three axes are the x-axis, which goes left to right, the y-axis, which goes from front to back, and the z-axis, which is the vertical axis going up and down. In this version, as of version 2.8, it has become much easier to understand the movement of the axes. There is now a widget, a movement widget up in the upper right hand corner, which will let you move on a particular axis or move around on an axis. It is important to know, if you look at this axis, Z is up. Z is your vertical axis. If you click and hold down on the Z, you can move the screen around, but as long as that Z is towards the top of the circle, this circle, you will be oriented basically in the right direction. The same is true of the x-axis. If you click on the x-axis and hold it, you can move it around and spin it, and as long as it ends up over on the left hand side about center, you will be back where you started. The y-axis is the same thing. It's to the back when it's first shown. As you can see, one thing that is important to remember is that Blender does look at the different directions, front, back, top, and side. When you're looking at the front, the y-axis is to the rear. If we move this y-axis, I'm now scrolling the mouse to the left, we can see the back, and the y is to the front. That's you want to remember that. So I'm going to put it back where it was, and we're back looking at the front. This is very handy to be able to have this widget to get yourself straightened out if you get lost. The widget can also be used to orient your screen to the various views. For example, if you click on the Z button, it will change the screen to the top view. We're now looking at the screen from the top. I'm using the scroll mouse to scroll out and back in. If we want to look at it from the x-axis directly, we just left click on the left on the Y, and that puts us to the to the right side. And if we click on the X, it will put us to the left side. And the Y takes it to the back. I'm not sure what I hit before, but that's the way it should work. So if we want to see the front, we can click on, if we click on the Y again, each time we click it, it will move 25 degrees. So now we're back to the front. It's worth playing around with this tool a lot to get used to it, because it really will save you a lot of grief later. Blender also gives you many different ways to do the same task. In addition to using your widget to pick the orientation of your screen, you can press the tilty screen, which is the asterisk looking number beside the 1 key, and it will bring up a pie chart of selections as to what way you want to look at the screen. For example, if I want to look at the front, that tells you the number pad can also be used. So if I look at this, if I click here on the front, or if I hit the 7 on the number pad, it will take me to the front. Well, but we're already there, so let's look over here. If we want to see the right, or we press 6 on the number pad, it'll take us to the right. So I'll click here, and you can see we're on the right hand side. I'm going to hit the tilde again, and if we want to see, let's say, the top, where'd the top go? We just press either 8, or we can press this button and we're on the top. So using those various selections or the number pad, you can very easily pick the view that you want to see. It is worthwhile to spend a little bit of time playing with the number pad to see how it moves the cube in different rotations. For example, with the cube selected, if I press the 4 key, each time I press it, it will move just a few degrees around. If I hold it down, it will spin. If I hold the 6 key down, it goes the other way. This is real handy. Also, if I press the 2 key, it will start spinning in a different direction. Same way if I hold the 8 key down. It is worthwhile to play with these keys a little bit and get used to the movements, because later they come in very handy. Now it is time to get a basic understanding of how the objects move around. Blender works in objects. This cube is considered an object. In order to see where it is moving and what is going on with it, we're going to press the N key. This is a key that you will want to remember. You will use it a lot. The N key will bring up a panel showing the location of our object, the rotation of the object, and the scale of the object, and the initial size of the object. Right now, the only thing we're going to worry about is the location of the object. To change the location and understand a little bit about how it works, we're going to come over to this panel, which is the transform panel. When this button's highlighted, we can use the mouse to move around and to select objects. So now I've selected this cube. I can come over to this panel and select this move function to make the cube move. As soon as I moved it, you'll notice that the arrows showed up in the ways I can move it. I'm off of the cube, I'm pressing the control key down and rotating it a little bit to get this at an angle to better see. So once we have done this, if we hold down the green button, which is front to back, we can see that when we move that button, I'm holding the arrow down and the key, that it moves. If you look up over here on the y-axis, you can see where it's moving to, how far it's moving. Same way as if we pick the x-axis, we can move on the x-axis. If we pick the z-axis, we can move on the z-axis. Now, even though I've brought it back to almost 0 every time, if we look up at the actual locations, it's not at 0. That is something that happens all the time, and it's virtually impossible, even when you use the slowdown method, to get it where you want. If you really want it someplace, double click on it and put the value you want in and hard kick it. Now our cube is back exactly where it started. There are other ways to do it, which we move things around, which we will get onto later. This is only intended as a quick overview of how Blender is laid out, to give you just a rough idea of what's going on in 3D and how it is laid out. Later you will find that no matter what you do in Blender, there are many different ways to do it, and you will have to figure out for yourself which is the most convenient for you.